Greetings and welcome to the Fighting Dirty Podcast, a show about friends who love to eat, sing, and be merry, and also play a shitload of board games. On this week's episode, we discuss Brass Lancashire, The Mine, Forbidden Sky, our continued addiction to Magic the Gathering, and so much more. I'm your host, Matthew Wright, and as always, I'm joined by Gary Baxter, and thus begins episode 15 of the Fighting Dirty Podcast.
Hey, friend, we're here. We're 15 episodes in. We're doing it.
Kind of like a 6-liter. So, recently, we went to karaoke.
We did. It was great, man. It was Friday night, and our normal place, or wait, was it Saturday? It was Friday. Okay, our normal place was supposed to have karaoke, so we got all geared up. We were ready to go. We were practicing our songs, and then it turned out that the guy was DJing a wedding, so we got really bummed out. And I had my wife look into other places that was doing karaoke, and we found a couple places that were kind of close. And then we decided to go to one that was kind of out of our, probably out of our age range, I would say. Why are you making that face?
Because there was like a bunch of old people.
We were the old people. We were the old people. No, I'm just teasing. But we got there, and I had never been there before. My wife had been there, so everybody knew her when she came in. She had to introduce me to everybody. This is my husband. I'm like, hey, random person. I have no idea who you are. You knew the people that were there. You probably knew like half of them, I'd say.
I knew some people there, yeah.
I didn't know anybody. So we get in there, and the guy is setting up karaoke, and it was taking forever. I was like, man, are they even going to do it? Because sometimes you go out to karaoke places, and they just like, they don't want to do it. They advertise that they're doing it, and then they like start setting the stuff up, and it's just like, I kind of don't want to do this. So they take their time, they start drinking. And so anyways, we're sitting there. It was probably like 2 hours in, and I was just like, man, come on, let's get going. So he finally sets the stuff up, and he goes, all right, let's get this started. And I go, oh my God. And then he goes, oh, I was like, wow, the voice of an angel. It was amazing. It did not look like that.
The sky opened up, the light shined down, and Tubby's voice rang
His
through.
name was Tubby, yeah. Old Tubby was, he had the voice of an angel. And so I was going to ask you about this. Is it tradition? I mean, I guess it is. Is it tradition for the guy running it to always lead off?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, well, I've been to like 4 different places, and literally the person...
Probably doing a sound check is what I would assume. That's what that's for, sound check.
Yeah, all right, I guess. I think it's almost... I want to say it's a party foul. No, you don't think so?
I just think he brought the stuff, he set it up, he's the one running the mixing board and the power amp, and he's probably testing the levels. That's what I would do. I'd do the same thing.
Okay, all right, I'm
with
with
if
you.
it's going to sound like crap, it should sound like crap because I'm singing and I'm the one adjusting those levels.
All right, and they should have fun too, I guess. But I have been to places where the guy who's running it, and I'm not talking about the one we normally go to. It was like at Indiana Beach, the one we went to. The guy, all right, so everyone kind of like, He did like 4 songs. He led off. He did like 4 songs. Then he did another one himself. And I'm like, man, this guy is like in on this. Like, people are here to do this. They've signed up for it. Why are you going like multiple times? It's almost a party foul. I guess there's a good mixture. And Tubby was fine. He led off. He went like, I think 2 or 3 hours until he went again. And he was good. So it was great. I mean, I loved it, man. We got there. The sound system was insane. He had reverb on it. I couldn't hear myself when I was singing, but when people were singing, it was excellent. I could hear everybody singing.
Sure.
And we had a shitload of singers there. People were just killing it. It was just all night murdering.
Oh, it was a great event overall, and he had nice wireless mics, and immediately I was like, man, this sound system is really good.
It was awesome.
And a couple times, like later in the night, once I got... my voice started going out and stuff like that. He actually would like fill in some spots singing, like helping me out. So I appreciate that. And we look forward to going back. We try to do karaoke from time to time. It's like if I'm going out and drinking, it has to be an activity or something. I'm not yet to a point where I just want to go sit at a bar by myself and just drink, because that sounds very sad and lonely and depressing. And even just to go out to sit and drink, even with my friends, sounds kind of sad and lonely and depressing. But going out and playing a board game at a bar is a lot of fun.
I've never actually done that.
And going out, that's where I've done most of my gaming.
Really?
Outside of you is usually at a bar, because I bring a game and we meet up and play.
See, I prefer to like have people over. I'll drink and then play board games at my house, and I don't mind sitting around drinking. That sounds fun to me, just sitting around, having some drinks and just shooting the shit. That sounds fun to me. I don't mind that. But yeah, going to a bar and just sitting there, that doesn't sound fun. It looks like everyone's just miserable at the bar when they're sitting there. So I'm not there yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I like to have an activity to do. So that's why I enjoy going to karaoke.
I rarely go anyways, so it was so fun just to actually go to a new place. Like, we went out of our comfort zone, and it ended up being awesome. So it was fantastic.
Yeah, I can't wait to go back. I'm already working on some new material.
That's great.
I've been blowing you up, like, and this is where you'll sing, and this is where I'll sing, and blah 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 blah. So.
We break down the songs like it's our own song. Like, here's where you'll do this, this, and this. Real quickly, this isn't in our little document, but I've been getting really, really hyped for Bohemian Rhapsody, the Queen movie coming out. How do you feel about this? Do you think it's going to be a good movie, or do you?
I think it's going to be a great biopic.
Oh, man, it looks so good. I don't know the name of the actor that is playing Freddie Mercury. He was in a couple other stuff that I think you would watch. Was it
Robot?
Yeah, Mr. Robot. And, man, he looks just like him, and his mannerisms are really close enough. He has a really weird name. I can't remember it. But I think this is one that I don't know if I'm going to go the night before to go see, but I definitely am going to go, I think, in the theater to watch this. If anything, they should kill it with the music. The soundtrack is going to be obviously Queen. It's going to be amazing. But yeah, Rami Malek, is that his name?
I think it's Malik.
Rami Malek.
Yeah.
He's great. I've watched a bunch of interviews with him when he was on like Jimmy Kimmel or Conan, either one. But he seems like a really funny guy. He's a great actor, obviously. So how is he in Mr. Robot?
He's fabulous. I mean, he has a strange character. He's kind of a person dealing with mental health issues who exacerbates those issues by trying to control a drug habit. That's part of the storyline, and then he's also just wrapped up in like an insane hacking conspiracy where he's working for a company that is supposed to be protecting from hackers while he's like hacking. So it's really cool. Like, it's an inside job kind of thing. But as an actor, he's amazing.
Well, they picked the right guy to portray.
Yeah, he looks really good.
Looks great
in the makeup and stuff. So yes, I'll go see it. That looks fabulous.
Also, I finally, you guys have been killing me to watch Split. It's the M. Night Shyamalan movie. You actually had the DVD, and we have a buddy who loves this movie. So I sat down, I watched it, finally got through it. I think he hyped it up too much. I thought it was just going to be like a world-changing movie. It was good. It wasn't excellent. But I enjoyed it, and I'll see Glass. Glass is going to be the sequel. Did you see that trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I've been paying attention to it for a while.
Oh, okay. So I thought it was good. You're probably right. You said it's probably M. Night Shyamalan's best movie he's done in a while. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it. I just think it got overhyped for me. I wonder how I would have felt if I would have just stumbled upon it, kind of thing. So
yeah, well, our friend Dusty's kind of really into it right now because he wants to do a cosplay.
Well, what kind of cosplay? You just go without a shirt on. That's so stupid. What is he thinking?
He wants to shave his head.
He wants to shave his head,
which we told him is an awful idea.
No, coming from two bald guys, shaving your head is an awful idea because
hang on,
it's not going to come back.
Just hang on,
and he's thinning, and he needs to just keep it together. Just hold that hair there.
To, take his vitamins and brush and make sure he's treating his scalp appropriately and take hair and nail supplements, and he needs to do all that, not shave his head. So don't let it go.
I don't remember. I remember him saying he wants to cosplay. So when he cosplays, is he gonna be Patricia, the woman? Is that who he wants to be? He can't be the Beast.
He would.
Dude, the Beast has traps, and Dustin doesn't have the traps.
He's not doing any deadlifts. So there's no way.
He talks a lot about deadlifts, but he's not ready to be the Beast.
The kind of deadlifts you got to do to get traps like that for a guy his size is, he needs to be doing like 300-pound deadlifts.
Yeah,
that would start growing those muscles.
So I don't want to say that it's not a good movie. It was fine. It was good, but I guess I'm a little confused. Like, so you guys said it had something to do with, what was it? What's that movie called?
Unbreakable.
Unbreakable.
It's at the very end.
And it's like literally 5 seconds.
I said that. I told you.
I know. So it's just like, that's the
don't go into
vaguest,
it thinking that.
Yeah. It was just the vaguest tie-in. So now they're going to make a whole another movie about. Yeah. It's so weird. It just seems so strange. He's a weird director, and he writes really weird movies. So
it's going to do big, though. This is going to be a big one.
That movie killed because it had like one of the lowest budgets ever, and it made like 2,000% of what they put into it.
What's James McAvoy? The guy who plays Professor X.
Yeah.
He's also the main character in Split.
Yeah.
he destroys in that movie.
Yeah, he's
right?
awesome. Yeah,
So,
he's
I mean,
great.
If you're just watching it to watch James McAvoy, you're just like, yeah, this guy's got chops.
Yeah.
And like, so yes, so some of the female roles are a little weak in the movie, in my opinion. And I guess they're supposed to come off that way because, I mean, what that character is.
Yeah, he's a man.
He's a man, and he's also, like, you know, he's
mentally ill
he's
or
mentally
whatever.
ill, and he's also targeting specifically those kinds of girls so he can keep them captive. And it's just, I loved watching it and not knowing that it was going to tie into Unbreakable.
Oh,
at
you
the
didn't
end.
know?
No, I didn't know. So when I watched it, I just watched it. At the very end, I was like, I got really excited, and I text Mackley, our friend Mackley, because he really likes the movie Unbreakable.
Yeah,
and I was
I
like,
did too.
whoa, you got to watch this. And he's like, I'll watch it. And then he got back to me. He's like, that's cool. They're eventually going to do something with it. So I watch it because I really like James McAvoy. But
Yeah.
overall, it's an okay movie that I've watched twice. So
Okay.
it was
Well,
good.
I just want to briefly talk about that. So
Oh, for sure. But I am pumped to see the new one.
okay.
Whenever it comes out.
Oh, I am too. I think that would be a fun activity for me, you, and Dustin to go out and watch it. I think that'll be
that'd be awesome.
that'd be great. So, one more thing before we move on here to some board games is you finally started watching Black Mirror. I have been begging you for the longest time. I'm like, dude, it's Twilight Zone with technology. You've got to watch it, please. And it's just one of those things. You're like, I'll get to it. And finally you got to it. And how do you feel?
It's amazing.
Oh,
It
man.
is so good, and that's just how I operate.
Oh,
And I
that's how
operate
it-
that way with board games too, man.
That's how everyone just operates. Like someone's just like, watch this, it's great, and you're like, yeah. I don't want
when the
to.
time is right, it'll present itself.
Yeah.
And I open Netflix on my PlayStation, and I threw it on, and I'd already had started watching the first episode a long time ago, so it queued up where I had left off, so I had to back up. And I'd only been watching like 5 minutes of it and turned it off. So I had tried.
Right.
It was one of those things, just like with The Expanse. I have started watching it like 5 times.
I think
it is not capturing me the way it has captured you. So
you got to
like,
be in the right frame of mind, like
sure.
you said.
So
maybe
I'm
one day
balls
when you
deep
get there,
on the Black Mirror because it is just enthralling, and I love that every episode is different.
they have nothing to do with each
They have
other.
nothing to do with each other. You know some of the actors from other things. Other times you don't know any of them.
Yeah.
And they got chops, and the story writing is really good. The production value, insane. And I've watched at least half of the episodes, and in no particular order. It's kind of scrambled where I'm at. So I'm kind of just reading through real quick, just like what the episode may or may not be about. And I was
Right.
like, I'll give it a try.
Well, see, Black Mirror is only, I think they're on their fourth season, correct?
Yeah.
So I kind of did that with Twilight Zone, the old one. So I looked up a top 100 list, and I was like, all right, I'm going to start at 1 and go down. And like, I just fell in love with it. You know, back in the day, I didn't watch a lot of Twilight Zone. I was just one of those little turds. I was like, this is in black and white. It sucks. But then when you go back and watch it now as an adult, you're like, oh my God, this show was ahead of its time. Like literally was ahead of its time. It did a lot of racial, stuff. It did a lot of just relationship things, and just sci-fi was I don't think it was big back then, but it was just like, it was such a huge element in the old Twilight Zone movies. But for them, like Black Mirror is the spiritual successor to that. And
Well, The Outer Limits, and then Tales from the Crypt. Those
Yeah,
are very Twilight Zone.
they are, but I feel like this one in particular is like, I would suggest, people, watch some of the best episodes of Twilight Zone. Outer Limits is cool, and so is, I like Tales from the Crypt, but I would suggest if you like Black Mirror, you can go back and watch some of the best episodes of Twilight Zone. Whereas, some of those other ones, maybe not. I feel like Tales from the Crypt was a little cheesy. It was, but
It was HBO, and it was horror. It was super horror, not super horror, but it was more in the horror comedy genre. Yeah. Just like Outer Limits went more, I would say, sci-fi horror, whereas Twilight Zone was more just drama, sci-fi, and then also just kind of drama thriller.
It is, and like Twilight Zone has episodes where, at the end of some of the episodes, you get left with a feeling of just like, of not feeling good. You're like, oh, I wish it wouldn't have ended like that. Yeah. That doesn't feel good. And same thing with Black Mirror.
Yeah.
But then there are episodes where it's really happy. You're like, oh, I'm so happy it ended like that. I'm glad it came together. Like the one you just watched, San Junipero.
I didn't finish it yet, but
oh, okay, that's a great episode. It's just like those bittersweet, endings.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy that you're enjoying it. I'd love to do like maybe a more in-depth Black Mirror breakdown someday on the Fighting Dirty.
That'd
That'd be fun.
awesome.
That'd be really fun. I think that'd be something maybe we could get Roger and John in, have, we could just do an episode at a time or a couple episodes and talk about that. That'd be really fun. So, anyways, let's move on to some board games, man.
All right, well, the first game we're going to talk about is a game that you picked up at Gen Con 2018. It is Brass Lancashire from Roxley Games, the original by Martin Wallace. Tell us about it, Gary.
Well, Brass Lancashire is by Roxley Games. It's by Martin Wallace, like you said. It was released in 2005, and it's been re-released, and it's been prettied up, hasn't it? Man, it's a beautiful game. Brass is an economic game where entrepreneurs are developing a cotton trade in Lancashire, England. In Brass, you'll take 2 actions, and every time you take an action, you'll discard a card. During your turn, you may build a canal or a rail token, which will connect your industries together or to other players' industry tokens. You can build an industry card. This is the meat and potato of the game, so your players will build like iron mines, coal mines, and this will supply players with resources around the board. So when you build items, you have to take iron or coal, so you have to spend actually other players or your resources that you've built on the board. You can develop an industry which will let you remove a lower level industry from your player mat, so that way when you play like a cotton mill that's a higher level, you'll score more points. You can take a loan. You can take a loan for 10, 20, or 30, but it decreases your income generation. So on the side of the board, you'll generate income. But when you take a loan, it'll bump it down so you can actually end up paying money at the end of the round instead of actually getting money. You can sell cotton, which will score you points, and it increases your income level so that you can get more money between rounds. Every time you spend money during your turn, you will place money on your character portrait. At the end of the round, that player will then, with the least amount of money, will go first, and the person that spent the most money will then go last. It rotates after every single round. And that's it. The game's really, really simple to play. Although it's easy to play, there is a lot of strategy. Some of your turns you will set up to sell cotton by building a port or canal so that you can connect yourself to the trade network, or you may go into debt so that you can do these things later. Each of the 2 eras is played over a set of rounds. You'll know that the era is coming to an end because you will begin running out of cards. Every time you do an action, you discard a card, so eventually you'll run out of cards. After the canal era, everyone removes all of the obsolete level 1 cards from the game and all the canal routes because they've become obsolete as well. And then you'll score points for every building that has been flipped over. And thus begins the rail era. Players will once again start building routes and work to sell cotton and score as many points as possible. And that's pretty much Brass in a nutshell. It's super simple, but it has a ton of strategy. I was really surprised that I bought this game, and I read through the rule book, and it was just one of those games you read the rule book, you're like, this is going to be great. So I invited Matt and Dustin over. I had it set up so everyone didn't have to do much. The player mats make it so simple to set all the buildings up. And I noticed in the older one, there were no player mats. I think this game would almost be miserable without these player mats, but it was very easy to set up. I went through the rules. It probably took me about 30 minutes or so, would you say, to explain everything? And then we just got to playing. And even though everyone was confused and not sure where to begin, once the game got 2 or 3 rounds in, we were doing it. We were playing, we were in like Finn. We were selling cotton, we were building rails, creating networks, and it was just so fun to just get started with the game. So before we go on any further, let's talk about the theme a little bit. When the guy explained the game to me, he goes, "It's about selling cotton in England." I go, "Oh, that sounds awful." But he showed us how to play, and I was like, all right, that looks awesome. Connecting networks to sell cotton. This looks great. The actual theme is very dry, but if you look at it in context of being in the late 1700s, early 1800s, it's fun because you're trying to build a giant network, a vast network all around England to make as much money as possible. So I think the theme oozes through. I think that it's really, really good.
Yeah, I agree. The theme really just resonates throughout the whole game. It's just saturated with it. The board, the imagery on all the cards, every little token. This is a finely crafted game where they spent a lot of time and focusing on the graphic design, and it comes through, and on the board it says 1770 to 1870. And as much as any game can put you in that mindset, that's where you're at. And so early on in the game, it was amazing when you're building those canals and everything. You feel like, this is the only way I can do it, and I got to build this network and connect into it. And just the theme itself was amazing. The artwork on the box, all of it, just top-notch stuff. So the theme really connected with me.
Yeah, the theme really, really shines through. So sticking with theme, let's go ahead and talk about the artwork. The thing that really compelled me to buy this game, I'm not even going to lie, was the box art cover. The box art of Brass Lancashire, I even said it to you, I've said it multiple times. It's the prettiest box art I've ever seen. It's like Stronghold Games could take a cue from them, because the guy that is on the front of the board, or the front of the box, looks like an actual person as opposed to an android. Like the characters on Stronghold Games would never pass a Turing test. They would fail it every single time. But he's got a top hat on, he's smoking a pipe, and it just looks like an entrepreneur. It looks like a man who's building some rails. And so it really, really pops, because Brass is in gold, and then, you know, Martin Wallace is underneath, and it's a very, very dark cover, but the front of it really makes the character pop on it, and the name of the logo Brass really pops because it is so dark. And it's during the Industrial Revolution. It's supposed to be dark. There's a lot of pollution, a lot of darkness, and I loved it, man. It looks so cool. What did you think about it?
The lighting is what really I love about it. It's just like you said, and when you actually look at the box itself in person, you're very impressed with it, and it has a nice texture to the box itself. It's not just like some slick cardboard. It has kind of like a grainy feel to the box. And I love the artwork where it is blending that pollution in with the fact that there's very poor lighting because of the time era. And so it is a beautiful cover, and the board itself I love. I mean, as much as a map can be beautiful, it is a beautiful map.
The map looks great. It looks so good. A lot of people were complaining about how dark it is, but I think it's perfect. You know, England is you know, it rains a lot there. The weather's chaotic, and during this time, there's a lot of just pollution and everything, and it looks just beautiful. They have a bunch of buildings throughout the map, and just the coastal artwork is fantastic. It's like you know exactly where everything needs to be. I was really struggling during the game trying to find like where certain things were supposed to go, because you discard a card and you build in that area. But the coastal ones I had no issue. You know, the map makes it very obvious where the coastal areas are, so it's really easy to build those and see those. So the art's amazing. It made it so fantastic. The one thing that I will complain about was, you know, especially for you almost, there's purple and blue, and I had trouble differentiating those, and I'm not colorblind, so a lot of times we were like, where's this area? And so like all three of us would start looking, and we're like, oh, there it is, it's right there. You know, obviously we're Americans, so we don't know England very well, but that was one of the problems that, you know, they have like a blue and a teal, and then they have like a maroon, and then like a light brown, and it was hard to differentiate those two colors. Like, where is this area? I've looked everywhere on the board 4 times. I can't find it.
That would be my one complaint, is that for me that is hard. The more you play it, the more you'll start to remember where the city actually is. But early on in the game, I'm trying to match the color. That's not working out, and it would like try to plan my next turn, but a lot of time I would spend so much of the time in between my turns trying to find the place. That kind of hung me up early on. As the game went on, it got easier and easier. I look forward to playing the game multiple times where I just know where every city is and all that. That'll all get figured out. But that is from one play, one complaint I have. Probably my only complaint.
I really wish they would have used different colors. That would have just solved it, a lot of the problem. But, you know, maybe they tried different colors. It just didn't look as good. All right, so let's talk about the components. The number one thing that I know you loved was the iron clay chips. You go, I'm sorry, boys. I am just going to be doing this all night. Just with the chips. And, you know, none of us cared because I was doing it nonstop. Just It makes you feel like an entrepreneur with all that money. Just
like a gambler.
Constantly, gambling. I'm going to build this, you know, and just you have that money. And just to have like the textile feel of a giant token that represents 20 or 10 or 5 or 1, it feels great. You know what I mean? It made everything obvious, like how much you were spending. Because at the end of the round, whenever someone spends money, you put the money on your character token. So at the end of the round, I was able to quickly decide who spent the most, because I could just look at it and be like, oh, your pile's huge. Oh, and those are 20s, so I know who does what. I was able to arrange the player order really, really easily because the tokens were so great. And you know, you can do without them, but it really added to the experience. I thought that it really, really made the game easier to play just having those, but it felt great having those, you know, having a giant poker stack of money, you know. So I know that you love those.
For sure, and so we don't need to spend too much time on the poker chips. Other than the fact that I just love them, and I'll be annoying every time I play with it. I will take out 3 loans just so I can have a bigger stack of chips to clink.
I want $100 in ones.
The cardboard pieces themselves, your little buildings and boats and other
canals and rails,
all that stuff was all really good, thick quality. I enjoyed that. The cards were great. The components in the game, top notch. To go along with artwork and the theme, it was all top notch.
Everything was fantastic, and the art. It's easy to miss the art on those, but the art on the canals and the rails looked really good, and then the buildings, everything's just so like. They went down to the finest detail, and everything looks so good. It's easy to differentiate everything. The components are fantastic. So let's talk about the gameplay. So the first of all, I want to ask you, when I ran through how to play the game, I was kind of happy with myself because you go, I get it. I understand this game. I know exactly how to play it. And I was like, well, that's good. How do you feel, Dustin? And Dustin's like, I'm really confused. But that's more of a Dustin problem than it is anything else than Brass, because he doesn't pay attention. He vapes, he's texting all these fat girls, and he's doing all this other crazy shit that he shouldn't be doing instead of listening. I had to literally treat him like a kid. I'm like, Dustin, pay attention. He goes, okay. But you listen the entire time, and you just got it. And
I was in the danger zone immediately.
Right.
Hyper focused because I've been wanting to play this game, and so I was sitting at the edge of my seat listening to every word, and it is a heavy game.
Yeah.
Heavy for someone who hasn't played a lot of games like that. And I would say Dustin, as much as he plays games, we don't play a lot of Euros with Dustin,
right.
So this would be a new experience, but immediately it all just made sense. And having some background knowledge from paying attention to the Kickstarter and things like that, I felt like immediately just ready to go. And it played so well. You taught the game so well. I love the mechanics of the game. You play a card, and that's pretty much either you're going there or doing something else around that location. When you spend your poker chips, they all go onto your characters, and as you spend more money, then you can move up higher in the player order. Right? It just, everything about it flowed so well, and unlike other Euro type games where you're network building, usually you're building your own network. In this game, you're tapping into a network that's made by everybody, and that's what made it fascinating. It made it easy and gives you a million strategies. I'm being a little hyperbolic there, but you have so many different strategies in this game because you can let other people do the dirty work, and you can just tap into the network and then cash in for some money. And that is just fascinating to me because I've played so many other games. Like early on in my board gaming life, we spent a lot of time playing Power Grid, which has things in this game that are similar-ish, but it's network building.
Right.
And you spent so much time focused on your own network, and this totally different. You can have different strategies every time you play it. I want to be heavy in building the network. I don't want to spend too much time on the network. There's just so many facets to this game to master. I can see why people play this game 1,000 times.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to only get better the more we play it, because afterwards when we were talking about how much we liked it, you were like, I have so many different strategies. I'm going to play so different than I played that time. And I felt I could have played better too, because the whole time, I think you were ahead most of the time. And I
was
kind of
ahead at the end of the canal.
The canal area, yeah, you were way ahead of us because you had built the shipyards and you scored a bunch of points. And I took a different approach. I tried to kind of do more networking and selling cotton. And I don't think you sold much cotton early on, So every time you sell cotton, you flip your tile over, and then you'll score that many points on the flipped over building. And you were going more with selling those shipyards and scoring those quick points. And Dustin, he let you, like you said earlier, he let us do all the dirty work, building the network, connecting everything together. And I went with more of an approach, I built a lot of coal, so you guys were using my coal constantly. And whenever the coal gets ate up on your building, it gets flipped over, and then you're going to score those points at the end. So one thing I didn't do is use the develop action enough. I wish I would have used develop action more to get rid of some of the earlier crappier buildings, and then built a level 2 or 3, because you're going to score those twice instead of just once, because level 1 buildings get removed at the end of the canal era. So I wish I would have developed a coal mine that was either level 2 or 3. That way it would have stayed on there, would have scored twice, and then I would have built another coal mine somewhere else that was level 2 or 3. And that was just not knowing. We didn't know, so we built we thought we had to kind of just start with crappy buildings and build it out early, which you don't. You can kind of slow play it and spend your time developing better buildings, but you can almost overdevelop. So if you spend too money and you get to that level 4 coal, and then you put it on there and there's not enough coal on the board, then you're buying from the actual board's player market. It's not a player's coal mine, it's the board's. And the more coal there is, so it starts out like there's 3 pieces of coal. It's like level 1, it's $1, and then as that gets eaten up, it's 2, and then 3, then 4, then 5. So once it runs out, then you have to spend $5 per piece of coal that you need. I really thought it was just interesting that the network is built by the players and everybody shares it. I thought that's so cool, because in Power Grid, I think it's Power Grid, you can cut people off.
Yeah.
And in Ticket to Ride, you can cut people off. Settlers of Catan, it's all about cutting people off.
Yep.
But in this, it's everyone taps into the network and then is using that. So Dustin was letting us build the network. He was selling to his own ports through our roads that we built and everything. Yeah. And it was so neat. Like I wasn't angry about it, because you score points for those. Yeah. Those canals and rails that you build, but he was not doing any of that, and he was still scoring points. So there's multiple ways to play, and it was smart of him, really. I mean, at the end of the game, the score was really close, and it was not like a blowout by any means, but the game just plays smooth. It's really easy to play, but it's not complex in the mechanics of the game. It's complex in the strategy. It's heavy in that, because I feel like you can probably screw yourself in the canal era and not have a chance of winning. But there are ways that you can probably get back into the game. But I feel like if you really, really screw up in the canal era, you can probably not come back. You know what I mean? Like if you do too much messing around and you don't, take loans, which loans are huge. Like I think all of us were afraid to take loans, because on the side of the board, I think you start off making $0. And then if you take a loan early for $30, it bumps you down 3 marks. So you're like, even though you just took that loan for 30, at the end you're going to pay $3 back. So it seems really like dangerous, but it's not, because you start building those buildings and that thing you start generating income. So it's like one of the things, the rich get richer. You take those loans because you need it, and you're going to just get tons of money. So I love Euros. I don't generally choose to play them a lot, but this is one that I'm going to get out a lot. I like it better than like Caverna. I just want to play this one again, and I want to really just cut into this one. That way when we end up going to Brass Birmingham, it's just going to be like a whole new experience. I've looked a little bit into it. It adds a couple different mechanics and resources. So I feel like if we can really play this game 10, maybe 15 times, then we get to Birmingham, and then we're just old veterans by the time we get there. And then we just burn Birmingham slap the
shit out of it.
Let's go ahead and talk about our final thoughts and replay of the game. I mean, I think it's obvious coming through from what we said that I love this game. It feels like it was out of nowhere. And I was thinking about it the other day, because I was like, how the hell did I miss this game? It's been out for 18 or 13 years, and it's in the top 50. It's like number 32 or 30 or something like that. How did I miss this game? I really don't know. And I think a lot of it was because I've just been an Ameritrash player and card game player for so long, and I gradually get into the Euros. I just missed it. And looking at the first edition, it's very unremarkable. It looks like a game I don't want to play. It looks really dry. It's kind of funny because this game is dark and brooding, and the other one's like kind of light. It has more color to it.
It looks like a Rio Grande game, or
right?
Something that has that kind of color palette that they like to use a lot. I can see why we never played it, because I looked at it and be like, I don't want to play that.
Hell no. Yeah.
I would have, if we were like over at Chuck's house, and our friend Chuck has 1,000,000 games, and he's like, guys, we're going to play Brass. And I'd be like, nah,
yeah.
man. But this is not that game. Brass Lancashire,
right?
The new version, beautiful replay value. I mean, like I said, 1,000 plays, and then I can't wait for not only to play it more in person, but for Tabletop Simulator or something on Steam, because then I can really refine those strategies, and then it'll get cutthroat Brass.
You know what? The game took a couple hours to play, but I never felt like it was like slow. You know what I mean? Even though it took 2 hours to play, I never felt like it was just like, God, take your turn. And even when people were kind of getting AP, which you will get because you're like, I need to do this, but I need to do this, and I can't do this because I need to do that. You know, that happens, but it was never like those 5-minute turns. It was just a couple minutes, and a lot of that's predicated on the cards you have in your hand, because you can only build in the area that you have those cards. So, it's a great game. It's smooth. It just plays. It flows, and I loved it. It was a great 2 hours. It was a 2 hours well spent. I love Brass, and I can't recommend it enough.
I can't wait to play it again. So that is Brass Lancashire, Roxley Games, Martin Wallace. They killed it.
Yeah, great. All right, so let's go ahead and move on now. This next one is the one that you picked up at Gen Con. It's The Mind by Pandasaurus, and we made a special trip to go get this game. And the first day, they refused to give it to you. They said it was sold out. They said it has to sleep so it could come back. The guy was really weird. And I was just like, oh, my God, I don't even want to play this because that guy was so weird.
He was attempting humor.
And it failed.
Not going over. And I was just like, so come back tomorrow?
Yeah.
And he's like, come back tomorrow. I'm like, okay.
Oh, it was awful.
I came back the next day. The Mind, people are enjoying this game. I've played it several times now. I enjoy the game. It's an activity than a game. It's very fun. Basically, in this game, you're going to have rounds, and the rounds are going to, however many rounds in the game are going to depend on how many players are playing in the game. So the less players, the more rounds, the more players, the less rounds. And you're going to get a card equal to the round every round. So round 1, every player gets 1 card. Round 2, every player gets 2 cards. Round 3, every player gets 3 cards. And what you're trying to do is play those cards in the correct order from lowest to highest without communicating in any way, shape, or form. No winking, no nodding, no shaking your head, I'm not going to go. You're supposed to just lock eyes with the person and then play it on the feeling, and if you mess up, you lose a life, and the game continues until you run out of lives. You have an option to play a thing called a Chinese star, and everyone must agree, and if you play the Chinese star, everyone discards their lowest card. That is literally the entire game. You can get more lives by completing rounds. You can get more Chinese stars by completing rounds. It's tough, but I do feel that the more you probably play with a group, the better you would get.
It will. That's what I was just going to say. I was literally just going to say that. It's not a game because there's no strategy to it. There's nothing that you can do. It's just playing cards, and it's just doing simple math in your head. You know, so we played, and we got my wife in there, and someone played 30, and I had like 42, so I was waiting, and, you know, she had like 35, and I ended up playing 42, and she didn't play. And I was like, why didn't you fucking play the card? What, did you think I had 33? You know, it's just one of those things.
On it?
Yeah, and, you know, if I had 33, I would have played it right then. And, you know, it was just, you know, it's an activity because there's no way of strategizing with each other because you obviously can't communicate. But it's one of those things that you'll play more with each other. You'll get better at it because, you know, you'll do math quicker, and you'll know each other's habits. You know, you're like, if Matt doesn't play quickly, then I know he probably doesn't have a card within 20. So here, it's my turn, you know. And it's more of like, it's an activity than a game. And it's funny that you said that because Eric Lang just tweeted that he's tired of people discussing whether the Mind is a game or an activity.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he literally just tweeted that. That's funny that you said that.
I backed off Twitter because it sucks.
Yeah, Twitter sucks. And it's a fine debate because, I mean, that's literally how I felt. I was like, I could take or leave this game because there's no... It's a fun activity. It's something that you play a couple times. You're like, that was fun. And then you move on. It's not something you want to like, boys, we're not leaving till we beat this and get to level 12. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not playing this. I would rather do something more meaningful and strategic. But for $15, it is a fun experience. It is something that I enjoy doing a couple times. Maybe I would even do it a couple times per board game night. But it's not something I'm going to spend an hour or even 2 hours doing. I'd never do that. So.
I'll throw it out there once in a while. I want to play it in all the different player counts, 2, 3, and 4. I haven't played a 4-player game yet.
Yeah.
I want to do that. It's fun to do with friends, and for people who are probably, I don't know what you would call them, but people who like games like Apples to Apples and Cards Against Humanity,
it's
Code Names, stuff like that, that's very, very light but popular. This game's going to get played by them. And it's been picked up by a lot of hobby gamers, too, who play the heavier, the Euros and the Ameritrash games and the Dice Chuckers and all that stuff. This game, it crosses into both demographics. Financially, they've made a lot of money off a deck of cards that's 0 to 100.
Oh, man, they're really blowing it up into the sky, dude. But this next game is really blowing up in the sky, and that's Forbidden Sky by Gamewright. It's by Matt Leacock, and I'm just going to say this. I love this game. You know, you brought it over. You're like, it's fun, it's hard, and I'm not sure if you like it. And no, it's awesome. I think this is the best Forbidden game. It's definitely better than Island. I think Island. So let me say this. I think Island is more interesting than Desert, but Desert's a better game than Island. This game's way better than both of them. I would be fine never playing those two because this one's way better than both of those, and it's fucking hard.
This game's pretty tough.
Gosh, the first time we played it, we weren't even close. The second time we were close and lost on the last turn.
It hurt.
Dude, I remember how mad I got. I grabbed the fucking chip and I go, fuck! But this game is another one of those games that is very simple to teach. You taught it in 10 minutes and we were off and running. It's so easy to play. You have to get like so many capacitors. You get 3 small capacitors, 2 bigger capacitors, and then you have to build wires all the way back to the ship to launch the ship off. And it's so cool when you do connect it because the shipmate goes beep, beep, and then it takes off. It's so rewarding. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to put it together and win the game because what happens is during the game, lightning will hit the rods, and if you're stepping on a wire, you get hit for 1 health. Also, wind will blow, and you get knocked off the board, which will damage your rope. Once your rope's frayed, you die, and once someone dies, the whole team loses. Or if you get shocked by lightning, the whole team loses if you run out of health. So it's just like the other games. You can get healed by other players. You can repair the rope. Other characters can move characters around. What's the other one? The other couple. What are the other special powers of the characters?
You got a medic. You got a rope guy. You got a guy.
I literally just said that. Pay attention.
I was thinking about something else, dude.
But it's just like, yeah, you had the guy that can direct them around, and then there's another one that can build wire for free. It's very pandemic-ish, Forbidden Island. You know, it has those same roles, stuff like that. I found it really neat that, you know, I felt like there is quarterbacking in this game. You're like, let's do this, this, and this. But because the way the tiles are, you know, you have to really kind of keep it nice and tight, because if you build a giant board, you have to wire all the way around the board. So if you can keep it nice and clean, you wire really simply, really, really tight. But the problem with that is there's wires everywhere, so you're getting damage nonstop. But on the board, there's little shelters. What are they called? Faraday shelters that protect you from electricity, and then there's cages around the board that protect you from wind so you don't get knocked off. Or what are those called? I can't remember. Okay. And then there's also teleporters that you can warp from one teleporter to another around the board. So it's strategic to build those teleporters like, hey, I'm over here, I'll build a teleport over here so you can get over here quickly. So there's ways to mitigate the damage and the rope burn and stuff like that. So our one game that we played, I got onto the launch pad because you said you have to build the last wire while everyone's on the launch pad, right? You can't launch off without everybody on the ship.
To be there when you put the last wire on the ship.
Right. So I moved myself to the launch pad, and I was like, all right, I'm going to move up to the top part. That way, if I get knocked down, that way I'll still be on the launch pad. Two wind cards came up, knocked me totally off the launch pad. We didn't have enough to get back onto it, so we died, and I was so frustrated. But all I wanted to do was play again. It's so fun, and that was just on normal. There's easy, normal, hard, and then maybe another one. Is there a hardcore?
Like expert.
Yeah. So this is one that, you know, after playing, I was like, man, I should get this one for my girls. This would be a fun one to play. So you did good by getting this one. And we told the story last week that you actually got the last copy on, was it Saturday?
Saturday.
Yeah, so you got literally the last copy at Gen Con. Wow, you're so special. I like this one. So I know I rattled on. What did you think?
I very much have enjoyed every time I've played it. I've lost every time I've played it. I've played 3 times and have not. I mean, the one game we played, we were very close. I like this game. I don't know if I like it more than Forbidden Desert, but I played Forbidden Desert so many times that I'll probably never play it again. So in my mind, I might be building it up better than what it is. But I liked the kind of like the aspect of like hunting and searching that's in Forbidden Desert, where you have to, you know, get all the pieces and then construct the ship. This is more kind of build as you go if you're doing it efficiently. So just slightly different kind of things.
I just think it's boring. I think digging in the desert's boring.
Yeah, and it's, you know, the tiles. I mean, everything in this game's high production value. Yeah. They really blew it out with how good the components are. And the fact that it actually works and they're all little metal things, and little metal wires that you connect to little metal capacitors that eventually connect to a metal launch pad, and if you do it correctly, it'll light up.
Ship, yeah.
And so it's very cool. Is it novelty? I've not yet decided. I'm going to play it some more. It is a concern that I have that it might just be a little too much of a novelty thing. So
I really don't think it is. I was just going to say that too. Like, and if you're thinking that, I was just going to say, if you're thinking Mousetrap, it's not. It's really a skilled game. You have to work together. You have to have a plan.
Skill.
So I don't think it's novelty. I really, really don't. And like you said, I like Forbidden Desert. It's probably the second best of these games for me personally. You know, you said you might like Desert better, but I think it's boring. It's just like you go around, you're digging. And it's like sometimes your turn is just dig.
Yeah,
it sucks. Like it sucks.
You're stuck in the desert.
It sucks.
That's the whole game.
I know it sucks.
You gotta get that sandblaster, dude.
And so, with this one, I felt like every turn was like, it was fun because like, even when you're drawing tiles, you're like, oh, I got the tile we need. All right, we got to do this, this, and this, and then like, you go like, I'm going to wire this, and every turn felt more meaningful than with like, with Desert or Island. You're just like, I'll dig here. And it's like, that's my turn. That sucked.
And we're going to play this game a bunch of times. So, my final judgment is yet to be decided. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to beat it. The end game felt really tough when there starts to be like 3 bad cards getting flipped, whatever. I can't even remember the names of those cards right now, but like when either the electricity strikes or the high winds or the danger rises.
Yeah.
It just gets brutal at the end. So I feel endgame is always going to be hard on this. You're always going to be dealing with, like, I got to get to the platform, but somebody's always going to be down to 1 life or 1 rope, and it's going to be like, it's going to make victory all the sweeter.
Well, even after our game that we lost, I was like, I could have played that better. I should have been taking teleporters over here. We should have built this better.
Definitely.
And it's just one of those games that, like, you feel, even like with Brass, I was just like, I could have played better. I could have did this better.
The efficiency could have been better.
Yes.
That is exactly what we needed in that game, was to be a little more efficient. So if we could have done that and not taken so much damage and saved up some of our some of those gear cards for the end game when we needed it, when I needed a shelter from the wind or from the electricity, that's when we needed it. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to play many, many times. We're going to start beating it. I'm very curious. You know how like they'll put the ratings on like win-loss percentage for games, like on Pandemic and other stuff, like at this level, you should expect to win maybe 50% of the time. I wonder.
On normal, I bet it's lower than 50. I bet it's probably like 30.
Okay.
It seems low because I mean the very first time we played it, just got wrecked. Like it was bad. I was just like, God, we did horrible. Like we weren't even. Is this game beatable? And so, and then we came back the second time, that's when I was like, we got to keep it tight. Everything's got to be tight. That way Matt could wire that up. Everything was better. It was much better. We were literally 1 turn away from winning. Had I not got knocked off the platform, we'd have won. So we were there. But man, what a cool game. I'm really happy. I was very, very meh on it initially, and I was completely wrong. So I just, it looks so novel. It's just like, that looks kind of crappy. But it ended up being the best one. I really like this game.
It definitely has depth to it too, and toughness. I like co-ops. I like co-ops that are challenging. This is right there for me. So that's Forbidden Sky from Game Right Games, designer Matt Leacock.
Welcome to the Gaming Etiquette Corner. I am Gareth Baxter here with Marthy Ryan, where we teach you about gaming etiquette and how to be proper and prim, and my accent is changing to something. Alright, we're going to do gaming etiquette, and today we're going to be talking about gaming personalities, and this is really going to be like a free-flowing conversation. It's very, very vague. And I just threw it on here so that Matt and I could kind of bounce back and forth. And so I was wanting to talk about different types of gamers that you've played with or how you are personally. And so I wanted to start off with myself. And I was riding my bike today and I was thinking about this. So we have a friend, his name's Sean. And he's an excellent guy, but when he gets in a group of more than 2 people, so if it's you and him, he's excellent, he's a great person. But when you add that third person, he turns into Turbo Sean. So he just becomes more bombastic. He just does things crazily. It's awesome. It's awesome, but it can get a little wearing on you. And I was thinking about me personally. I do that too, especially when I have a couple drinks. I turn in not turbo Gary, but I turn into like a more like aggressive Gary. And I think this was like kind of developed because I was in sports, and when you're in sports, you have to develop that like that mindset of I'm the best, I can do this kind of thing. And I definitely do that with gaming. And when we're playing certain games, especially competitive games, I like to talk shit and like just, I get in that mind frame of this person can't beat me. I'm smarter than them. I'm better. I'm the best, kind of thing. And I'm not like that at all times. I'm able to turn it on and off. And as I've gotten older, I've developed it. I wish I could have been this way like when I was younger, like when I needed it during athletics. I could have been like way more confident, and it's a confidence thing. You develop this confidence of, I'm a better Magic player. I can beat this guy. Or like you're playing Castles of Burgundy. You're like, I'm out drafting the shit out of this guy. He doesn't even see what this is going on. It's just things like that. And, after the game, I like to talk a little mess, but I can always turn it off. And, when I get whipped, I can admit it. It's not one of those things where you get like the hard, excuse me, the hardcore alpha gamer that can't turn it off, or whenever you play games with them, they're miserable. If they're not winning, they're not having fun, and they're not fun to play with when they're like that. But how do you feel about alpha gamers, and how do you feel about people that are always on, or people that can turn it on and turn it off? Like, how do you personally feel about that? Is that how you are? Is that the way you operate? Do you notice it in me? Do you notice it in other players?
Well, yeah, I mean, and lots of people exhibit these tendencies and these habits. It is nice to be able to turn it on and turn it off. I do the same thing in certain games, or in a game, especially like in a war game or something where there's combat.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be some trash talk involved, and confidence is key. And being able to put doubt in someone's mind can always be beneficial to you. So you plant the seed early on, you talk the trash, and if you have to back it up later, you back it up, chuck those dice. And that's the great thing about a lot of those games. Sometimes it's a dice roll, and you can lose dice rolls, so you gotta be ready to be humbled as well. And for alpha gamers, that is usually where they can't handle it, and that's where they will shut down or rage quit. You see a lot of that in video games.
Right.
I would say more so in video game than board gaming. I've definitely seen some people go off the deep end. I don't know if they're alpha gamers, but I've seen them become salty dogs.
Yeah, I would say that's almost a different thing. Like, losing when you're really invested is a different thing. And, alpha gamers are more like, they always think that what they're doing is the best. And even though like you've played with them, it's not. You're like, this isn't optimal. Like this person's just an idiot. They just think they're awesome at it. And that's different, like you said. But I like how you said confidence is key. It always is. Whether you need to like, sometimes you're like, fuck, this game isn't going to end unless I make a move, where sometimes you just need to go all out. I put the chips down, I'm coming in. And that way the person you're going against is like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, I'm not ready for them. What are they doing? And then it puts doubt in their mind. And that's what's so interesting about certain games is when they have this type of mechanic where you can just put it all on the board and go all out. Like say in Forbidden Stars, there was a game that we played where I was just like, man, I'm just gonna go all in on Matt, and you, I don't think you were ready for it. It's just one of those things where you just got to put the chips on the table. Had you won that battle, I think I would have lost the game. But it was just that was like my key turning point in that particular game, that I had to get through that certain like hump on you, and it was a gamble. Is if I'd have lost, I don't think I could have recovered. But that's part of gaming, is being confident and being able to make those decisions, and sometimes taking sometimes not always opportunity, but you got to just gamble sometimes. And I think, alpha gamers are good at that, but in general, I don't think they're good at losing. They do get salty. That's another thing I associate with alpha gamers, is they get really salty when they do lose. Another type of gamer are just people that are just there to have fun. And I think these are the type of gamers that you have to be one of these type of gamers to actually enjoy the hobby. If you're not, then you just might as well not mess around with it, because you're not going to win every single game. You're going to probably lose most. So you just need to go out there and have fun. And that's why I feel like, me personally, like I'll put in that little mix of alpha gamer, and a lot of it is to actually add fun to the game. You know what I mean? It's fun when someone comes in there we were talking earlier about playing Spartacus. I played a game with Kenny and his friends, and I remember I got Crixus. He has those 2 swords that cross, and I was just screaming. I was like, "Oh, I'm the best!" And I rolled like really high, like I think like 6s, and I ended up decapitating him. So I was like playing it out like I was decapitating him and stuff like that. And it's fun when you get big and loud like that, and you got to know when to tone it down when you can do that. Because if you're playing with a group of like prudish people that don't want to hear you cuss and ramble on, it's not fun for them. So you got to know when to add on and when not to. So I board games have to be fun. So you need to be a for fun gamer all the time. It needs to be fun, as long as it's not competitive. I'll say, like if you're in a tournament for Magic, you're not there to have fun. It's there to be miserable, and you're there to question everything and be miserable and cheat and steal. And I'm just kidding.
Well, and I agree. And I would say that for the most part, I am a for fun gamer. I don't take first time playthroughs, second time playthroughs, sometimes fifth time playthroughs all that serious. But once I really know a game, then I might move into that realm of like, I'm really going to attack this game, or I might be another type of gamer that we're going to talk about later, the Out for Blood gamer, where I'm just like, I know all the strategies, I know what to do, now I'm really going to start putting the screws to some people. So, for sure, at my core, I'm a for fun gamer. That trickles into that bombastic side at times when need be, when I want to be, but just try to enjoy the game for what it is. And I've played some games with people recently that they're not really board gamers, and you can tell they're not having a lot of fun. Yeah. And they make it kind of miserable.
I know who you're talking about, and I agree totally.
So if you're not having a good time because the game is just maybe you don't know all the rules yet, or something like that, you're more of a co-op type gamer, you're new to the hobby, then play those games, and once you're ready, then
I'm glad you brought that up. That's really important. So you need to understand, like, if you're in this type of social setting, when you're playing board games, they're supposed to be fun. Now, if you're not having fun, don't make it absolutely miserable on everybody else. And if someone wants to sit out or doesn't want to play a board game because they don't like that type of game, don't make it worse for them. Don't like shit on them because they don't want to play it. Just say, "Oh, that's all right. How about you guys play this?" But don't sit there and just make it worse. Like, try to enjoy yourself, even if it's out of your element. But don't make it worse for the other players because they may be having fun. Sure. Because you're not having fun, to put that on those other players, it just makes you a shitty person sometimes. Like, you just shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be a fun social element. So just try and enjoy yourself. Don't make it miserable. Don't make it worse. That's the worst thing you can do.
And there was definitely a time in my life where if I looked at a game, I'd just be like, I don't want anything to do with that. And I just try to leave it at that. Now I'm in a place where I just want to try them all, and I might like it. I might like something. If someone threw the old brass on the table right now, I'd be like, let's play it. Let's try it. It's ugly as hell, but let's play it because I'm willing to play just about anything. But I can understand it. I just don't want it to infect the group. The group herd mentality is very fragile. You don't want to ruin that. You don't want to upset them. Everyone's there to have fun.
Right. And that's like, at Gen Con, I mean, I can admit this, like, I like Azul, but it just like, the game just kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It kind of grates on me. Like, it's not something that I want to play over and over. It has to be like one of those special situations. You're like, let's play Azul. And I'm like, God, I don't want to. It's just one of those games. So I was just like, I excused myself to let you guys play, and you guys had fun.
Right.
And it's just one of those things because I knew if I had played it, I was just like, this game's just not all that like. It's fun, but I can't explain it. It's fun, but it isn't sometimes because it just gets so fucking repetitive to me. So I'm just like, I need to be in a special place, to play this game. And I wasn't there. I wanted to play Magic at that time. So I was just like, I don't want to play Azul. And it's like that for other games too. Like, like I'd ask you to play Eldritch Horror. You're like, nah, dog, I don't want to play this right now. You just have to be in a special place. And that's just one of those games that just currently, I just don't want to play. Let's move on to the teacher type of players. So this is like a person that I would say generally has a collection of their own. They're the ones always buying the games. And so they kind of get stuck teaching the games. So I want to talk a little bit about how you do that personally, because we both have collections, we both taught games, and I got to say personally, I think over the years you've become a much better teacher. Like, you're more patient, so you're able to teach the games and the concepts of what you are trying to give out about the game. And one of the things, like, I think in the past that, people love to talk over rules. And, I'll just be like, dude, chill out. You're like, shut the fuck up sometimes. And you've gotten so much better about that, and you're more concise, and you just ignore that stuff. And that's what you have to do when you're teaching a game. And it's hard because everyone has their phones, and we've come up with a rule like no phones. Like, and if you can't,
if it's out, it's because you're taking a picture of the game and then you put it away.
Right, and that's different. Like that's a totally different thing. And so we've had players that just like they're texting nonstop and all this, they're doing this other stuff, and that's like, it goes back to what we're talking about for fun gamers. It ruins the fun when someone's not engaging in the game. And so when someone's not engaging during a rule setup, it's aggravating. It's one of the most aggravating things. So I understood your frustration, and it's just, it comes with the era, man. Everyone's always on their phones. They have like the smallest of attention spans. So to go through a 30-minute rule setup with certain people's is just miserable sometimes.
Yeah. And then inevitably they'll go, well, you didn't tell me that.
You're like, yes, I did. Yes, I did. And it's just like, you just want to freak out because you're like, yeah, remember when I was telling you this rule?
More so lately, I'm able to, I can handle it through the setup. But usually, if it was a movie, somewhere between the second and the third act, I lose it.
Yeah.
I will lose it on somebody. Yes. And as the game's run to the end, and I hate that because I know it can change the mood a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want that to happen, but it's also like, well, you never told me you could discard 2 cards and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it was like...
But it makes it hard for you to teach when people are not paying attention. So
absolutely.
It's like you're just sitting there prattling on, and we've got a buddy that does that. Like, he'll just be on his phone nonstop, and you're trying to tell him what to do, and you're just like, man, you've got to pay. We're trying to play
teaching you brass.
I'm trying to teach you how to play Chaos in the old world. It's pretty thick with rules. Can you get through like the first 5 minutes? And it's just, man, it's so frustrating, and it's just aggravating.
About to bring out the heavyweight. You might want to pay attention.
Oh man, it's aggravating. Like, I think it's so hard to be a teacher of board games, and they're very underappreciated. But people that are really good at it, man, they're so valuable. They're so valuable.
And I've been blessed, to have people like you, my friend Roger, our friend Chuck. These guys, they'll spend a lot of money on games. They don't mind teaching a game. They're patient. They're knowledgeable. And it takes a lot to crack those people. And it's usually that, like, when you've asked the same question 30 times, that kind of situation before they snap, or it's the wee hours of the night and everyone's cranky and tired. Like, I can understand it. So it is tough to be the teacher, to be responsible. So, like, just to think about it, like, what I do to get ready for a game is obviously read the rule book.
Yeah. And that's what, before you move on, keep put a pin in that. That's something I love doing. Like, when I go to take a shit, I'll take a rule book in there, and like something like Dead of Winter, I'll be like, oh yes. I love reading rule books, man. I don't know why, but I love reading rule books. It's something I've always loved to do. And I think it goes back to like Runebound 2nd edition. I just loved like how thick the rule book was, how many like intricacies there were. I mean, there's way more intricate games now, but I just loved it. I was like, oh yeah, we missed this rule. Like, I love going back and just like refreshing myself, and that lets you get better as a teacher player, because they're like, okay, instead of saying this, I can say this instead, and it'll be more easy to comprehend. So go ahead and continue. So
anyways, when I'm getting ready to teach a game, I obviously read the rule book, try to find whatever video I can to watch it, reread the rule book, then set up a solo play and run through that. And while doing it, try to talk through it. And that's something I've just been doing recently, like, and actually make sure, not play an entire game. I'm not a solo gamer per se. Like, certain games I will try to play through from beginning to end. But other games, like when I was learning Cry Havoc, I just want to get through a couple combats, because the game is pretty easy once you understand the combat. Yeah. Like, once you understand what you can do on your turn and what combat is and how it plays out, it's a pretty simple game. So just run through it enough to be able to teach that game the first time you play it, because just from bad experiences, from horrible playthroughs of Arkham Horror and other things, 2nd edition Arkham Horror, where it just like it didn't go well.
Yeah.
And I did that game multiple times where it just didn't go well. Something wasn't quite right.
Right.
And the game's not quite right on top of it all. But when your rules aren't quite right and people aren't understanding the rules, then it becomes miserable. So to be a teacher, to be a collector, doesn't mean you're a teacher, because I definitely know friends who buy games that won't teach them.
Right, yeah.
But I definitely am fond of those people who will take the time to do it and do it well, because I've also run into the bad teacher or the bad demoer, and I'm just like incessantly blinking my eyes like...
We ran into a couple of those at Gen Con this year.
I've run into them at conventions. I've run them in my own gaming circles, things like that. And so it's tough.
Yeah, teachers are worth their weight in gold, man, because it just makes everything so much smoother. One little instance that this was a unique instance. So we were setting up to play Game of Thrones 2nd Edition, and we had a plethora of different players. So we had about half the group that were pretty heavy into board games, half that weren't. So I made a little group text message, and I said, "Hey, watch this video." And it was the Fantasy Flight actual run through of like the basic mechanics. So it was like our prerequisite. I was like, everyone has to watch this before we play the game. So that way everyone had like a inkling of how the game's played, how it was going to go. And then when I got there, I was able to teach it, and they're like, "Oh, okay, that makes more sense. That makes more sense. I get it." And the game went smooth. It went really, really well, and I was able to, put on top of that, like, these are the mechanics, but on top of that is diplomacy. We're going to be like making underhanded deals. You don't have to honor anything. And they're like, "Oh, okay, now I get it." There's not actually like, a rule set of like, you have to honor this or do this and that kind of thing. So, I think video has been a godsend for teacher players, because they can look at this and say, okay, that's, especially if you don't comprehend reading very well, which that happens, and that's nothing to be ashamed about. But, some people look at a rule book and they're great readers and like, oh gosh, they just glaze over. Where, like me personally, I love it. I'm like, oh yes. Where, people can just watch a video. There's so many good video teachers out there, like Watch It Played, things like that. And even like Fantasy Flight does so many good videos on how to play that it's just been a godsend. It's so much easier now to learn how to play the game than it's ever been before. Because you hear horror stories of like, wait, you play this game this way? That's not right. And you're like, yeah, that's how we always play it. I mean, like, probably the number one offender is Monopoly, right? Nobody plays Monopoly correctly. The game shouldn't last that long because everyone plays with house rules. Like, no one's ever read the rule book. They're like, oh, all the money goes here and go. And it's like, in the rule book, that's not how it goes. That money goes to the bank, but that makes the game last for an eternity because no one plays Monopoly right. So, anyways,
the only Monopoly I'm going to play is Warhammer Monopoly. So just
all right. So you mentioned it before.
Hold on though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you are not a teacher and you're a person who is often sitting at the table listening to rules, do yourself and other people a favor. Don't ask a million questions along the way, stopping the person from instructing. Save all questions to the end. Don't obsess over that one thought that you're having, because a good teacher will probably answer whatever it is if you give them one more stanza, just a few more minutes. Allow them to flow, because nothing, at least for me, if you keep stopping me, I lose my train of thought.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you allow me to flow, it will all tie together.
Yeah.
And I pride myself in that. But it's very hard when someone is question. All questions at the end.
Yeah.
If you save your questions for the end, I may cross a few off along the way.
Yeah.
Because I sometimes feel like I give too long of a tutorial.
Yeah, it's just everyone's different. Everyone teaches differently. But you're right. I'm glad you brought that up too, because like some people will just be like, you'll be like, okay, so here's what you do. You tap this to get 1 mana. Question: how do you fight that guy? You're like, not even there yet, bro. Just give me a minute. Gosh, you're right. They're the worst.
It gets me off the rails.
Oh man. So this next one that you've already alluded to is the Out for Blood player, and this is someone that. I have a specific player in mind. We used to play a lot of multiplayer Magic, and I had a friend, Derek, and he didn't care whether he won or lost as long as he just fucked with me nonstop. He just would attack me nonstop. It didn't matter if it was the smart thing or stupid thing to do. He would just do it nonstop. He'd pick it at me, just nonstop. And there's good and bad to that. Obviously, the bad to that is that it's not in the spirit of the game. He wasn't trying to win. He wasn't trying to do the best that he could. The positive of that to me personally was when you deal with that, you've got to become a better player. You've got to be able to deal with that and look out for that rogue guy that's just going to do random stuff. So it makes you personally a better player. Even though it sucks and I dealt with it for years, God, you suck, Mog. But it made me personally a better player. And it made for good stories where, he's going out and I would just save stuff for him and be like, oh, you're attacking me? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take control of your creatures. I'm going to attack you with your own. You're like, what? Yeah, there you go. Don't fuck with me. So that's what I mean by the out for blood player. It's not like they're not always out there trying to win. They're just trying to kill. And it doesn't matter who they kill. They want blood.
Sure, and just to mess, if they will, with what's going on in the game at all costs. As long as there's blood involved. Yes. And as long as there'll be tears afterwards. Out for blood gamers usually lead to someone getting upset.
It leads to a lot of salt.
There will be some salt at the table. You might, once it starts happening, just go get the salt shaker and put it out as a symbol. And just be ready for it because it will happen by the end of the game.
Do you have any examples of a out for blood player, or do you not run into this very often?
I don't think so.
I think we did probably in... we were playing with Mackley, me, you, and I think it was Dustin. We were playing Spartacus. And, you were either about to win or wasn't, and someone could, either choose whether you win or not, and they're just like, I'm going to kill Matt or something.
Yeah.
It may have been me. I may have killed you.
Yeah, maybe.
Because you were partnering with Mackley or something like that. But that was...
because we were doing the Primus, where you could tag team.
Yep.
Yeah, I was murdering in that pit. I had a savage warrior in that pit, and I was killing everyone. Yeah. And then Mackley's like, let's tag team. And I was like, okay, let's tag team. And then... is there a mechanic where you can turn on your partner in that or no? I don't think so. I can't remember
exactly what happened.
I vaguely remember it because then Kenny's car got hit and it kind of messed up things, and we had to take a break, and then we came back. Things got weird. It was one of those things. Yeah,
that wasn't the best example, I guess, for Out for Blood, but yeah, it just it rarely happens. But a lot of times they just don't play in the spirit of the game, which is sometimes it's awesome, sometimes it's not. Yeah. So. It just depends. It's a very unique type of flair.
And depending on the mood of the people in the group, it can lead to fun experiences, or it can lead to...
awful experiences.
Meltdown City!
I got a great one then. So, Out for Blood player, Dustin. We'd play a lot of Magic back in the day, and he would always use this card, Hymn to the Turach, on Dave. It makes you randomly discard 2 cards. So he'd be like... He'd always hit Dave with it. Discard 2 cards randomly. And, dude, getting 2 cards randomly taken from your hand is awful.
Yeah.
So he'd hit Dave with this constantly. So DDR was ahead. There's 4 of us at the table, and he's like, all right. He goes, you're 1-2, you are 3-4, and you're 5-6. And he'd already hit Dave with 2 or 3 Hymn to the Toroxes. Right. So he rolls the dice, and he's like, Dave, I mind twist you for your entire hand. Discard your entire hand. Dave picks up his deck and just slams it on the table, and he goes, gentlemen, I'm going home. And we're like, God! And that night, DDR was just out for blood. Even though that last one was chance, everyone knew that dice was landed on Dave, and Dave was getting hit because DDR that night was out for blood. Alrighty, man. So we can go ahead and wrap this one up. So the last one is the Schemer. This is the one that you put on there. So tell me about the Schemer.
The Schemer is the kind of... I feel like it's come to fruition more lately in games because there's a lot of trader mechanics in games and things like that. And the Schemer is the person who can actually pull this off. He is the puppet master. He is able to make people believe everything that he's saying. He's selling snake oil the entire time, only to reveal his true self late in the game. And I just felt like it's worth noting. And sometimes I just like scheming. I just want to scheme on people. It is a lot of fun. And in so many games now, this mechanic exists. Game of Thrones, Dead of Winter, Shadows over Camelot, and it takes skill to pull this off. And if you don't scheme appropriately, you're so apparent that it ruins the experience. So it's touch and go.
Yeah, there's a pull and push to that. So I think I'll state this. I think the Schemer player, when they pull it off properly, it's one of the best things that you can ever have happen to you. Even at your expense, if you lose.
Rewarding.
Oh my God, it's awesome. And the number one thing that I think of was the time that we were playing, I think it was one of those social deduction games where you have the rolls, there's 2 traders. It's one that you own.
Night Revolution.
Yes. And so I was a good guy. I knew that I was a good guy. And there was 2 bad guys on the table, and I knew the guy next to me, Dustin, was a bad guy because of my power. I was able to look at his. I knew he was a bad guy. And so we're going around the table explaining our whole situation.
And in that game, if you're a bad guy, you know who the other bad guys are.
Yes. And so Kevin goes, Gary's the other bad guy because I gave him my role. And so I was like, oh, shit, he switched roles with me, so me and DDR are the bad guys. And so I'm plattering on, and all of a sudden, like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh, my God, I have no idea what to do. And I looked over at you, and you hadn't been saying anything because you were a good guy.
We played 5 times in a row too, and I'm usually very dominant in those games.
Yes.
And in this round, I just decided to
you were just taking it easy. You're like, it's
just
easy.
let these guys figure it out.
And I go, wait a minute. I go, Matt hasn't said a word, and everyone's like, yeah, Matt hasn't said anything. Me and DDR won because of my great scheme. But, man, it was so rewarding, and we were just laughing, and we were saying it was like the Donald Trump thing. Matt was like, I'm not, because I told you this is why. And you were so right. You're like, I'm totally not because I explained this. I'm telling the truth. And everybody, if they would have been able to just pay attention for 1 second, but I was just plathering on, just wrong. You're wrong. Wrong. I was just trumping Matt. Wrong. You're lying. Wrong.
Fake news.
Fake news. It was so awesome. It was just one of the best schemes of all time. And that's why, like, those games can either be hit or miss depending on your group. And that's why, like I said before, rolling back, if you're not having fun with a game, don't make it miserable for anybody else. Especially in these types of games where there are scheming, you can't be miserable and make it shitty for everybody else because you've already been figured out.
Mm-hmm. And I have heard this more than once from people I actually know. They're like, I don't like any game where I have to lie. If I have to lie in the game, it's not going to work. So even like Sheriff of Nottingham or something where it's just like...
Yeah, how fun is Sheriff of Nottingham if you're telling the truth all the time? That's the worst game I've literally ever designed if you're not able to just fib. And that's just like, oh, that's miserable. You know, when people come to me like, I don't lie, I don't teach my kids to lie and stuff, it's like, you're playing a game! You're playing a game! It's not real life, man! It makes it fun! This is an outlet! It's supposed to be fun. You're ruining it with your stupid-ass morals. Stupid. Is there any other type of gamers that you've got? The Cash? Anything to use?
So that's Gaming Etiquette. I'm Gary Baxter. And I'm Matthew Wright. And now you can be prim and proper like the proper gaming player you should be.
Well, my friend, that was a great podcast. It was different, you know. We came into this one with a plan, and we really got off the plan. But I think it went great. I think
that's how it usually goes.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, I build a canal, then the canal is not important anymore.
It gets.
And I build the rails, and then I go off the rails, and then here we are at the end of the Fighting Dirty podcast, episode number 15.
Hey, and you know what? I think this is the first time that we've made a schedule and we stuck to it.
Yeah.
We said we're going to record this day and we're doing it. We're finally here. So we're on schedule. So we're back on the rails. Rails are good. They're not obsolete, except today they are obsolete.
Why
now,
am I playing so many train games all
I
of a
know,
sudden?
we promised we would never become that one. We should have did the train game player because all they do is...
Oh, my God.
We were getting old, dude. We're playing train games. We said we'd never be that guy. I remember back, it was like, I think last year, I was like, God, there's just those guys that play fucking train games. I'll never be that guy. Now I'm that guy. What have I become? They're awesome. I didn't see it, but now I see it.
All of a sudden, I want to wear jorts and New Balance sneakers.
Oh my God,
and
tuck
I want
my
to play
shirt
freaking
in.
train games.
Oh my God, that's all I want to do, man. All right, get us out of here.
All right, we got to get out of here. Thank you for tuning in to episode 15 of the Fighting Dirty podcast. Special shout out to my friend Roy, who's flying back from Shanghai. Enjoy this episode, Roy. It's dedicated to you. Follow us on Instagram. It is hot fire. Fighting Dirty podcast. All one word. That's it. You'll see video. You'll have links to our website where you can listen to our podcast. I mean, obviously you found it, but there's more content there. Fighting Dirty Podcast, that is our Instagram. Please follow us. We'll follow you back. We also like to pose a lot of questions. Interact with us, please. We want to interact with you. We want to get to know you. We're on Twitter, Fighting_Dirty. We have a Facebook page, the Fighting Dirty Podcast page. We have an email. It's the fightingdirtypodcast@gmail.com. I am Matthew Wright. I'm joined as always by Gary Baxter. Thank you for listening to the show. Download us on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. Until next time, we're out of here.
Stay smooth.